All right, welcome to pro football. First 50 years where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. And especially if you're going to go back in time and check out a game from like the 1920s or the 30s. Oh, sure, you can go online, find a box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was, find what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might find starting lineups for each team, but exactly what happened during the game. Well, thanks to all newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos and nothing like that here. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes, if that's all right with you. Let's get it on at today's game. Opening weekend of the 1959 season for both these teams. Ooh. The Philadelphia Eagles take on those San Francisco 49ers at Kezar Stadium. September 27th, 1959. Ooh. Now, both these teams would finish 7-5. My opinion, of course. One of the teams, it was that 7-5 was fantastic. For the other team, it was a little on the disappointing side. I'll go over that a little bit more in just a moment here. But it was opening week. Both these teams played 6 preseason games. I mean, that's what they did back in the day. Neither one had a very successful exhibition season. If you go by wins and losses, obviously, if you're playing the game, you'd like to win it anyway. But if you don't win your exhibition games, it's not the end of the world because, once again, it's just exhibition. Although one of the things was, back then, they like to play, they had some rookies. They want to put the rookies in there too. But, well, I'll tell you, it was amazing how much time that the starters played. It was amazing. I mean, quarterbacks going the whole distance in exhibition games. I mean, going from all 4 quarters. I mean, you ain't seeing that nowadays. I mean, they might have 3 or 4 quarterbacks going in preseason now because they only got a few games and they got to try to get the guys in there. But just thinking about playing 6 preseason games and you had your starters played almost all game. It was rather remarkable. But so we pull up the Eagles here. As I said, the Eagles. They didn't have a fantastic preseason, but once again, that was just preseason. But as we see, let's pop them up here. Now they would go 7-5. They were. You'll see, right? They were 2-4 in preseason. They beat the Giants, then they lost to the Bears, the Packers, the Lions. Then they beat the Colts. Although, the Colts were world champions, although in that particular game, Johnny Unitas, Lenny Moore, and Raymond Berry didn't play. So that kind of hurt them a little bit. Then they finished up, they were beating the Rams 28-7, I believe it was, going into the last quarter. And the Rams scored 24 points in the final quarter to come back and beat the Eagles. Whew. I mean, because Norm Van Brocklin was the quarterback for the Rams, and I'm sure he wanted to win that game pretty badly, even though it was exhibition. And he had the Eagles up 28-7, but they gave up 24 points. The Eagles fell apart in the last quarter. Rams came back and wound up winning that one 31-28. But that was just preseason. But if you'll see here, right, the Eagles. I mean, it was almost like, I don't know. It was written in stone, almost, how their season was. They'd lose 1, they'd win 2. They'd lose 1, they'd win 2. They'd lose 1, they'd win. I mean, if you look right here, right? First game of the season, all right, so spoiler alert, the 49ers would win this game. But as I said, they would lose 1. Then they would win 2. Then they would lose 1. Then they would win 2. Then let me know if you heard this again anytime. Then they would lose 1. Then they would win 2. Then they would lose 1. I mean, but the 7-5 season was they won 2 games the year before. So you go from 2 wins to 7 wins in one season. That's a heck of a turnaround. very good season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, it would culminate the following season, 1960, when it would win 10 games and win the whole kit and caboodle. The only one that was that beat the Eagles in this particular season would be the Packers, Vince Lombardi's first year. Packers won one game in 1958, and they would go from 1 win to 7 wins. So they were +6. And of course, they were on the same trajectory with the Eagles, because in 1960 they would win their division, go to the championship game. They would lose. The Eagles would win that. But all in all, this was a fantastic season for the Philadelphia Eagles. They still had a chance at winning, or tying, shall I say, for the division crown with a few weeks left to go. But with 3 weeks left, they had 3 losses. The Giants had 2. So basically, they really couldn't afford to stumble in the final 3 weeks of the season. They had hope that the Giants would lose at least one game and for the Eagles to even have a chance. But that was not to happen. The Eagles would lose 2 of their final 3 games, and they would wind up with 5 losses on the season. But as I said, once again, they went from 2 wins in 58 to 7 wins in 59. It was a fantastic season for the Philadelphia Eagles. However, on the other hand, with the 7-5 San Francisco 49ers, the season was a little bit of a disappointment. Same thing here. Their preseason was nothing super spectacular. I mean, I think they were 2-4 as well, too, were they? Yeah, they won, then they lost, then they won, then they lost their last 3 preseason. So they finished 2-4 as well. So, okay. But once again, it was just preseason. But where it was a little bit of a disappointment for them is they were 6-1 after 7 weeks, with 5 weeks left to go in the season. They were 6-1. Not only that, they had a 2-game lead over the Baltimore Colts. So with 5 weeks left, they had a 2-game lead, sitting at 6-1, the best record in the NFL. But as you see right here, they would lose 4 of their final 5 games. Now, every game they lost was to good opponents. They lost to the Bears, who finished 8-4. They lost to the Colts, who won the championship. They lost to the Colts, who won the championship. Then they lost the final game of the season to the Packers, who wound up 7-5. But I mean, they did get kind of blown out in these last couple of games. They were both at home, so these games are a little bit embarrassing right here, to be honest with you. And the only win, they would squeak out a 1-point win against the Browns here. And I believe that was because Lou Groza missed an extra point. Otherwise, this game, Lou Groza, was a very fine field goal kicker / extra point kicker, whatever, for the Cleveland Browns. So for him to miss an extra point, I'm not sure if it was blocked. He just missed it. That I don't know. But I do believe he missed an extra point, or this game would have been a tie. But as I said, but for the 49ers, they were 6-1. And to go from 6-1 to 7-5 had to be a bit of a disappointment for them. So, but this game is just one of my all favorite stadiums, good old Kezar Stadium. I only saw one game ever in Kezar Stadium on the TV. And of course, that was the 1970 championship game. That was the final game ever the 49ers would ever play Kezar Stadium. The following year, they go to Candlestick Park, where they would lose 17-10 to the Dallas Cowboys. But I just love the stadium. Let's see here. So let's pop that up and see what good old Wikipedia has to say about Kezar Stadium here. It was interestingly shaped, and I'll show you some pictures of it as we talk about Kezar Stadium here. Go Wikipedia. All right. An outdoor athletic stadium in San Francisco, California, located adjacent to Kezar Pavilion at the southeastern corner of Golden Gate Park. Serves as the home of the San Francisco FC of USL League Two. It is the original home of the 49ers and the Raiders, their first AFL season only of the National Football League. Kezar also hosts amateur and recreation sports leagues, as well as numerous San Francisco high school football games. Now it's been rebuilt and all and everything. I'll show you some pictures of that, and it looks really, really nice. But I mean, it's not the huge stadium that it was at one particular point in time. 1920, Jack Spaulding proposed an athletic stadium for San Francisco, seating 50,000. That's a nice sized stadium back then. Many business leaders in the city backed him, as would keep San Francisco level with other cities with large stadiums. Areas under consideration for the stadium were there were a few different areas for consideration. 1922, San Francisco Park Commission accepted a $100,000 gift. That's go figure. 1922, Mary Kezar donated $100,000 or a gift from the estate of Mary Kezar to build a memorial in the honor of her mother and uncles. Wow, $100,000. Her mother and uncles were pioneers in the area. My goodness, that is, boy, that's a fantastic thing to do. $100,000 back then. After the city of county of San Francisco appropriated an additional $200,000, ground was broken on the stadium on June 27, 1924, and the stadium was built within a year. Dedication ceremonies were on May 2nd, 1925, and featured a 2-mile foot race. Yeah. Stadium had many uses in the 30s. In addition to track and field competitions, Kezar Stadium hosted motorcycle racing, auto racing, rugby, lacrosse, soccer, baseball, boxing, cricket, and even football. Imagine that. Let's see, American football, high school, right? In 1920, city high school championship game between crosstown rival San Francisco Polytechnic and Lowell drew more than 50,000 people for a high school championship game. High school. Wow. College East-West Shrine game of 1931 was replaced by a raucous Knights of Columbus game featuring the Savoldi All-Stars. Interesting. Let's see. Stanford University played 4 of its home games at Kezar, 1 in 1928 and 3 in 1942. A professional stadium. There we go. Professional football. Kezar Stadium was the first home of the 49ers and the Raiders, as well as many NFL Hall of Famers, historical NFL games, and the first alley-oop. The Raiders played at Kezar Stadium for their first 4 home games in 1960 and at Candlestick Park during the remainder of their first 2 seasons. Before Frank Yoel Field was built as a temporary facility in Oakland, defensive end Jim Marshall, the visiting Minnesota Vikings, had his famous wrong-way run at Kezar in 1964 against the 49ers. But the Vikings did come back and win that football game. Kezar had a poor reputation, though, among NFL players. In his 1987 memoir, Hall of Fame defensive end tackle Art Donovan recalls the look of dread worn by visiting teams arriving at the stadium. Owing it to its inadequate dressing rooms, long, dusty tunnel to the field, shredded turf that was a byproduct of rain and overuse, and goddamn seagulls that would arrive in the fourth quarter and start blanking on you like they were aiming. As I mentioned, the 49ers played their final game at Kezar in early 1971 to lose in the 1970 NFC championship game to the Cowboys 17-10. 49ers moved to the more modern and accessible Candlestick Park from 1960 to 2015 for the 1971 season. Candlestick Park was around 1960 to 2015. And the 49ers played there from 1971 through 2013. But movies were there, concerts were there, demolition and reconstruction. Now, if you'll notice over here, do they have pictures down here? No. Okay, so we'll just go over here. So, you'll see here at Kezar Stadium. So they with pending demolition, the bleacher planks of Kezar were sold off. In April 1989. In June of that year, the stadium was demolished and rebuilt with a much smaller seating capacity of 10,000. But it's fantastic. Really, it's a beautiful, beautiful stadium. What they did to accommodate like high schools and all that and everything. It looks fantastic. What I hate is when you got a stadium there, right? It's been there for a while, all that stuff, and they knock it down, and then they put up a bunch of row homes, or they put up a pizza parlor and a nail salon, or something like that. They have it there. It was used as a park. Well, let's keep it as a park, even though it's got to be something huge. But right, keep it for the people, right? I'd say the upgrades included an 8-lane all-weather track and a grass athletic infield suitable for soccer, football, and lacrosse. And what they did, they did a replica arch of the Kezar Stadium, which is way down over here. You can see it over there. See? So very, very nice. Let's see what we got here. So let me go. We got some pictures here. All right. Good old pictures. It was a little oddly built. I saw an article. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I'm going to go over the details in just a second here of what I fondly remember, or kind of remember about the stadium. But here's a shot of it right here. Now you'll see it's got a lot of the way it was back with so many of these stadiums. They were the way they had to be built, or the way they had to be laid out, or whatever, or how high the grandstand was, or this or that, was basically they were at the mercy of the streets that the stadium was plopped inside of. Right? Whatever streets were around it, dictated sometimes how the stadium was built. You'll see over here, right? You see there's a huge wall up here. Right? I mean, just you see all the crowd and everything, and you see this huge wall right here. You see over here for the big aerial view, right? Once again, you see how it goes as a bowl all the way around. It's nice and high back here, nice and high, and all of a sudden it comes down over here, and it's got this wall behind it. Now, I mean, this is what after the reconstruction, obviously, it's beautiful, absolutely fantastic, right? This is where Kezar Stadium was. They knocked it down. They rebuilt it. Looks kind of like maybe there's like 5 seats for 5,000 over here and 5,000 or so over here. And they see in the background is the replica of the arch that was there. So, I mean, they did a fantastic job of that. But this right here, this is just, oh, man, this is Bart Starr. Now, I'm going to say that it's very difficult to tell. I can't tell. This is obviously Kezar Stadium against the 49. I can't tell if he has any insignia on his helmet. You can't see any of the Packers, the players. I'm not sure if he has an insignia on his helmet or not, because the Packers didn't get an insignia on their helmet until 1961. But you can see, I mean, they're like the 1 yard line right here. See that the referee's right here. He's looking. I mean, so whoever the guy with the camera was took a wonderful shot. I mean, it's just a fantastic shot. There's another shot too. Let's see here. I think it's in the other end zone. Here we go. Actually, there's a couple of them, but they got this one right here. Now I can't say when this drive was. It looks like here, I'm going to say there's an emblem on there. So this has got to be from 61 on right here. But this is obviously Kezar Stadium. All right. Let's see. Here we go. Here's another shot of Kezar Stadium. Where are we at here? Here's a good shot of that right here. Right, you can see, right? See. Now, what I heard was that because the wall was so low over here, so if you go from like the goal line, right? Oops. I clicked on it. I mean to do that. But from the goal line, the amount of fans behind the goal line, well, it was I'm going to say it was like 2/3 of the fans in the stadium were behind the goal lines. It was only like 1/3 because I see how low everything is over here. So you figure once the goal line here, it's all low over here. It's not a ton of fans over here. It's how low that is. Over here, there's a bunch. But I read there was an article I read, and as I said, I can't remember the exact numbers, but you see right here, see? You got the press box here, but once again, even with the press box, the press box takes up some, but then you see how low it is over here. And once again, there's the street right here, so they couldn't, they couldn't make it taller because the street it's right by the street. Now they would have to move a street, I guess, to do anything about it. But you see over here how tall it is over here. Well, there's houses back here. There's no streets or nothing, right? So, but over here, the way it was shaped, I guess there's no streets right behind it. So, they were able to make the bowl nice and high. But then it comes down over here, right? And, it would, I guess if they would have made it as tall as this over here, it would have been much wider. And it would have gone out into the street, and can't have that happen. So that is one of the reasons why, I guess, or the reason why it's so low over here. But it's just I mean, same thing over here, right? I mean, you see how high it is over here, and then it just gets kind of low over here. So it's just an odd looking, odd shaped kind of stadium. Is this it here? Kezar Stadium, San Francisco. It's tough to see that. What else we got here? Let's see. Okay, here's an inside shot there, right? Same thing here. See how low it is here, and just right, all low, right? But then the rest of the stadium is so nice and tall. I know that there was another. Let's see, there's that one. Here's another. Now this is going back. I don't know exactly what year this is, but I mean, this is in 59. But I mean, look at this. I mean, my goodness. Y.A. Tittle here, right? Then you got the Cleveland Browns right here. I mean, look at those uniforms. My goodness. Wow, huh? Simply amazing. And you can see it was full. I mean, the 49ers were certainly not lacking for talent. That is for sure. Is that, there's Kezar Stadium right here, right? There's the press box, and then, right? It's probably from that same game that I just showed you. I mean, look at those uniforms. Boy, I'll tell you, man. Wow, look at these goalposts. I mean, my goodness, huh? It looks like this was set back about 2 yards, I'm going to say, from the goal line. Little bit of minimum amount of padding there. Very, very minimum amount of padding. Okay, and this is, I guess this must be the new, there's like an overhead view of it, I guess, right? And there's the arch right there. Just a fantastic job. There's another shot of it right there. Right? There's the arch. Just a beautiful, absolutely fantastic job, just to keep it. Right? Just to keep it. As I said, I mean, give it to the people, let them, right, do what they will there. But absolutely fantastic. All right, so on to the game here, guys. What happened during the game? Well, we got a little bit of pregame here. Let's see. Let's go to the Philadelphia Inquirer, the September 27, 1959 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer. What do they got to say? It was interesting. I was looking at the Philadelphia papers, the night, like the day of the game. It wasn't a whole ton of talking from the Philadelphia papers about this game, but there's a little something there from the Philadelphia Inquirer. There we go. All right. The Eagles and the 49ers launched their season. If I can do this here. The Eagles, with the hopes for an improved season over their 2-9-1 log of 1958, opened the 1959 National League season against the 49ers in San Francisco Sunday. Kickoff is 5:30 p.m., but that's Philadelphia time, and the game will be broadcast over radio station WCAU and the Eagles Network. There will be no telecast of the game in Kezar Stadium. Wow. Could you imagine that nowadays? Can you just imagine that? You go to a stadium. No TV. Nope, sorry. Could you imagine that nowadays? Wow. Oof. Upwards of 50,000 are expected for the starter. The 49ers have sold some 38,000 season tickets. 3 rookies, Jerry DeLuca, Middle Tennessee, left tackle Joe Robb of TCU, and left defensive end and Gene Johnson, Cincinnati, left defensive half, have been named to the Eagles starting team by head coach Buck Shaw. Altogether, 8 new faces, including rookies and players from other teams, have won, temporarily at least, starting posts on the Birds' offensive and defensive units. Whoops. Let me refresh the page. This happens all the time. Okay. The Philly Pros total 18 returning veterans, 11 rookies, and 7 players with prior experience. Now, this is it's a 36-man roster. 1958, I believe they had 35. So they bumped it up one player, and they say 36 players. Unlike today, it's like a 53-man roster you have, but you only can dress, I think, 46. So nowadays, I mean, obviously, all the spots are so important. But I mean, the way that the packages that they have nowadays, you got the dime, the nickel, everybody's a lot of specialized players nowadays. This guy is just the long snapper. Well, you ain't got a guy back then, just a long snapper. I'm sorry. Very few guys back then. I mean, were just like a punter. The Eagles, it was Norm Van Brocklin who was their punter. Nowadays you got a guy who's just a punter. Now you got a guy who's just a field goal kick. But only 36 guys on the roster. It was one of the greatest personnel turnovers in club's history. 2 of the Birds' star rookies, left guard Darryl Oshbacher and right tackle J.D. Smith, who have started all the team's 6 preseason games, still are nursing injuries from last Saturday's game in Los Angeles and may see only part-time action. Stan Campbell, former Detroit Lion, will replace Oshbacher, and Don Owens has been moved from the defensive platoon to start for Smith. Now, also forget, this one particular season, John Madden was on the Eagles roster early on. He hurt his knee. I guess he must have really hurt it bad because he never played football ever again. But things turned out pretty well for him. But John Madden, for the first few weeks of the Eagles season, was on the Eagle roster, 1959. Bobby Walston and Dick Bielski, ends, Gary Huth, left guard, Chuck Bednarik, not heard of him, center, and a backfield consisting of Norman Brocklin, Billy Barnes, Tommy McDonald, and Walt Kowalczyk will complete the Birds' starting offensive lineup. Now, I'll tell you what, in this game here, let me tell you what, between the both teams, I mean, the Eagles had Sonny Jurgensen and Norm Van Brocklin. On the other side, the 49ers had Wyatt Tittle and John Brody. I mean, holy cow. What a foursome. Whew. Sunday's teams each finished the preseason campaign with identical records of 2 wins and 4 losses. The Eagles beat New York and Baltimore, while the 49ers polished off Cleveland and Washington. So, all right, let's go to, what do we got? The San Francisco Chronicle, September 27th. 1959 edition of the San Francisco Chronicle. And 49ers are favored by 2. Ooh, put your money on the 49ers. 49ers start riding on a clean slate for the 14th time today in the NFL opener against the Philadelphia Eagles, and experts say they'll run out of chalk long before December. Now, the 14th time, meaning, of course, they were on the All-American Football Conference, started in 1946. So you got 46 to 59. This would be their 14th season in existence. 49ers have failed to win a title in 13 previous attempts. 4 in the All-American Football Conference and 9 in the NFL, and have been rated 4th, 5th, and 6th in various 1959 early season polls. Some 46,000 fans, most of them inspired by the dream, which arises on the last Sunday of every September, will be at Kezar today for the 1:30 kickoff. Now, as I said, it goes to show you. I mean, nowadays, because they're playing 17 games, and soon they're going to be playing, I'm sure, 18 games because it's all about the money. But I'm saying we got 17 games with a bye week, so they're playing 18 weeks. Now, I don't know if I heard 18 games we might play, and everybody, then it's going to be a bye week, I believe. Plus, I believe from just stuff I heard possibly in today's football, if they start playing 18 games, everybody has to sit at least one game as well too. So that means everybody's going to have at least 2 weeks off, which makes a lot of sense. But I mean, you're looking at nowadays, my bad, apologize. If and when they do go to 18 games, because they probably will with at least one bye week, that's a 19-week schedule. Here was only 12 weeks. There ain't no bye week, right? They start at the end of September, like the last Sunday in September, and then they finish like 2 weeks into December. Nowadays, because the season's so freaking long, they start basically it was like the first week in September, and it goes into January, for crying out loud. Where are we at here? Oh, my bad. Yeah, I said, it always winds up happening. I have to refresh this all the time here. Shoot. Both the 49ers and the Eagles posted 2-4 exhibition records, and the 49ers are 2-point favorites because of the home grass. So I guess if the game, sorry, my dog. Oh, he's at my feet. I got to stretch my legs. Sorry, Randy. Oh, my goodness. So I guess if the game was played maybe in Philly, maybe Philly might have had the advantage. I mean, usually like the home field is, they give them like 2-3 points for home field advantage. Coach Red Hickey, a man who panics seldom, declares his 49ers are improved over the team, which finished with a 6-6 record, and has stated, we are more likely to finish first than last. Huh. Well, for most of the season, he was in first place. Hickey moved up to the head coaching job this year after 4 years as an offensive coach. Buck Shaw, who coached the 49ers in their first 9 title tries, has completely rebuilt a Philadelphia team which finished with a 2-9-1 record last year. There were 18 new Eagles, 11 rookies, and 7 transfers. Shaw has one of the game's great passers in Norm Van Brocklin, and the waddling Dutchman completed 95 passes and 166 attempts for 1,401 yards in the exhibition season. Receiver Tommy McDonald, man, he was incredible. I'll tell you, I couldn't imagine Tommy McDonald caught an incredible 30 passes with 663 yards in the exhibition season. But I couldn't imagine if Tommy McDonald and Norm Van Brocklin played their entire careers together, right? If they both came into the league as rookies together and they played, I mean, boy, Tommy McDonald really would have had his numbers really would have skyrocketed. The Eagles have top runners in Walt Kowalczyk, Theron Sapp, Bill Barnes, and Clarence Peaks, but have had trouble getting blockers in front of them. They gained only 590 ground yards it's very bad. In holy cow, in the 6 exhibition games, they didn't get 100 yards a game. Van Brocklin and his receivers will provide a thorough test for San Francisco's highly regarded secondary defenses. The defenders, rookie safety men, Dave Baker and Eddie Dove, and wingmen Abe Woodson and Jerry Mertens will be facing a pure passing team for the first time. Mertens, the surprise rookie of 1958, probably will be assigned to the elusive McDonald. San Francisco's running defense, trouble spot of 1958, should be improved by the addition of Charlie Kruger, linebacker Bob Harrison, not scheduled to start, and rookie Monty Clark. 49ers have most of last year's offensive equipment, although the best machinery is 1 year older in a game where years often take a heavy toll after 27. Oh, yeah. But quarterback Wyatt Tittle and Bill Wilson and fullback Joe Perry, all 32, have shown no appreciable signs of slowing up. In 1958, Perry had his best year since 1954. Then, of course, Hugh the King McElhaney has been smashed around pretty well in the last 4 of his 30 years, but still retains all his fancy moves and most of his speed. Defensively, Leo the Lion Namalini, who's 33, and Ed Hinkey, 30, were impressive in exhibition games. The San Franciscans played it close in every exhibition save the Ram game, and that's the one that worries Hickey. The powerful Ram runners smashed linemen out of the way and fooled the backup men for several long gainers in their 48-14 victory. He doesn't have to worry about the Rams. Let me tell you. Last year, the 49er defenders were good against the pass and lousy against the run. The Rams proved temporarily, at least, that the latter still exists. If the 49er pass defense has slipped, Van Brocklin will make a mess today. And we got the 49ers and Eagles. Time 1:30. There is the starting offense for both teams. And there's some Hall of Famers there. Okay. Joe Perry, Whitey Tittle, Bob St. Clair, Chuck Bednarik, Norm Van Brocklin, Tommy McDonald. So right here, you got 22 players, 6 of them are in the Hall of Fame. There's the rest of the squad. There's the 49ers squad. As I said, there's not a lot of guys. Not a lot of guys. So each guy is very, very important. All right. That's college. Okay, so now let's go to the San Francisco Examiner, the September 27th, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Examiner. What do they got to say? All right. 49ers 1.5 point pick. Oh, let me refresh this before it screws up anyway. Let me try to nip it in the bud before it gets me. Another National Football League season rolls around today in Kezar Stadium with the 49ers under new management once more, taking on the Buck Shaw coached Philadelphia Eagles. Kickoff takes place at 1:30, and the Kibitzer outlets will be television channels 3, 12, and 12C, plus radio station KSFL. Okay. The combination of a changeover in the sports scenery from baseball, the hopes of a new grid season, and the natural rivalry created by the appearance of the popular silver-thatched Shaw against his former employers and Howard Red Hickey is expected to draw close to 50,000 for the start of the San Francisco's 10th NFL year. It's the first time since 1953, a year Buck was the 49er coach, that the 49ers had Philadelphia as an opening attraction. San Francisco won that one 31-21, which happens to represent the largest margin separating the teams through a series of 4 league meetings. 8 49er faces from the 58 gallery: Gordy Saltow, Lou Palatella, Bill Stitz, Bill Jessup, Dennett Morris, Gene Babb, Bob Toneff, and the injured Jimmy Pace will be missing at today's kickoff, which sets off the 40th NFL season. But in the main, the same big names figured to dominate with the 49ers 1-1.5 point favorites. 49ers are 1-1.5 point favorites. That includes a probable brilliant passing duel between the two of football's most honored veterans, 49er captain Whitey Tittle, starting his 12th professional season, and Norm Van Brocklin, the erstwhile Oregon Flying Dutchman from Walnut Creek, and 1 year older at 32, enters on his 10th year. Neither has given up any indication of letting up. Shaw thinks Van Brocklin is sharper than ever, and the preseason statistics make that sound like a conservative observation. Dutch, who had more completions, 198, than anybody else in the league last year, has connected on 95 of 166. So, I mean, that's well over 50%. Well over 50%, which back in those days is really good. He had 1,401 yards and 15 touchdowns during 6 exhibitions. So, I mean, 15 touchdown passes in 6. I mean, that's like 2.5 a game. So every 2 preseason games, he threw 5 touchdown passes. I mean, not too bad. Tittle hasn't thrown as much, but his accuracy has been just as good, with 70 of his 123, once again, well over 50%, 870 yards and only 3 touchdowns. The Eagles are hurting because Pete Retzlaff, who tied Baltimore's Ray Berry for the receiving championship with 56 catches, has been sent home with a small bone fracture in his leg. Ooh. But Van Brocklin still has a great battery mate in the elusive, very elusive Tommy McDonald from Oklahoma, who, although only 5'10", don't let that fool you, at 182 pounds, has caught 30 of Van Brocklin's passes, 663 yards, and 10 touchdowns in the preseason. He's far and away the Eagles' leading scorer with 60 points. I mean, during the season, he scored in one game. He scored 4 touchdowns against the Giants, 3 receptions for touchdowns, and he ran a punt back for a touchdown. I mean, the guy, small but very elusive. Shaw insists the 49ers ought to be favored because Hickey has had his units together, whereas the Eagles, even at this late date, are still trying to settle into a groove. Injuries have upset the Philadelphia lineups. It's doubtful J.D. Smith, the number 1 draftee, will play at all. He would be the starting right tackle on offense, and Buck has had to move Don Owens from defense to take over. I mean, right? How crazy is that? One more time. Their number 1 draftee, J.D. Smith, would be their starting right tackle, but he's injured. So Buck Shaw had to move a guy from defense to play starting right tackle. That's crazy. As a matter of fact, both tackles and both guards on offense are newly positioned, except for Chuck Bednarik. Chuck Weber, who would be the middle linebacker, also is questionable. The Eagles also go in with Billy Barnes and Clarence Peaks, 2 of their strong runners nursing injuries that have prevented their working much during the preparations at Palo Alto. 49ers, on the other hand, are at physical peak now with Joe Perry ready to resume his fullbacking after missing the Los Angeles and New York games. And once again, there's the squads, right? There's apparently the starting defense, and once again, apparently the starting offense. All right, and we got one more here. The Oakland Tribune, September 27, 1959 edition of the Oakland Tribune. What do they got to say? Then we'll get going into the game. Now, also this is obviously on a Sunday, the 27th. Well, the game, the season started the day before on a Saturday. As you'll notice here, the Giants edged out the Rams in a wild finish in Los Angeles. Giants were lucky to win that one. All right. 49ers healthy for opener today at Kezar with the Eagles. Well, darn. I should have. All right, let's try this again. One more time. Physically stronger for an opener than they have been in several years, the 49ers embarked today on their 10th campaign in the National Football League, decided underdogs for even an eventual 6-6 mark. Every man on the roster will be in uniform and available for action when Coach Howard Red Hickey sends them out against the Philadelphia Eagles in Kezar Stadium at 1:30 p.m. A crowd of 50,000 is expected. In past seasons, at least one key man has missed the opener, it being Billy Wilson, veteran pass catcher, and the last 2. With a battle-proven offense to send against Coach Lawrence T. Buck Shaw's Eagles, Hickey will have the same men going for him that Frank Albert had during most of his 3-year tenure at the 49er helm. What Hickey has tried to do is strengthen the defense, but with so many new men in that platoon, the 49ers could still be afflicted with their chief disease, mental errors. This has also been a problem with the offense, despite the experience available. If Hickey can successfully lick that, the 49ers could pull a few surprises along with the 12-game season, which winds up on December 13th. 1 year ago, young John Brody started the first league game at quarterback, but veteran Wyatt Tittle rebounded midway of the season and is still at the play calling and passing helm. Off their preseason accomplishments, the Eagles and 49ers should stage a real aerial battle in venerable Kezar this afternoon, with the 49ers possibly having the better of it in the matter of receivers. But Norm Van Brocklin, calling them for the Eagles, is still one of the steadiest and headiest passers in the league and could provide the rookie-laden 49er defensive secondary with a rugged afternoon. That would have been my bet. Absolutely. I definitely thought the Eagles would have scored more points than they did in this game. But with veteran Pete Retzlaff out of this game with a broken leg, the Eagles have only Tommy McDonald as a real speedy receiver. Yet Ken McAfee, obtained from New York, and Bobby Walston provide talented short pass targets. Against this type of receiver, the 49ers will pit Wilson and Clyde Connor, short targets, and R.C. Owens and Hugh McElhaney, the men who can get the long yardage. Unfortunately for the 49ers, they can't relax their defenses against the ground attack because of the presence of Walt Kowalczyk, Theron Sapp, Clarence Peaks, Joe Pagliulo, and Barnes. Sapp and Paglio are rookies and among the most promising runners in the pro loops. Against their speed, the 49ers have no rookies in the offensive backfield, and veterans such as McElhaney, Joe Perry, J.D. Smith, and Dick Mogul may be slowing up a step. Only Len Lyles, obtained from Baltimore, appears to still have his great speed. He probably will see his first 49er running action today. One of the interesting side battles that may develop is a kicking duel between rookie Tommy Davis of the 49ers and veterans Norman Brocklin, Walston, and Dick Bielski of the Eagles. Davis will do both the punting and place kicking for the 49ers, and his efforts, particularly punting, have indicated he may surpass the individual season mark of Larry Barnes' 47.1 as a rookie kicker 19 times in 1957. Much of Barnes' 894 yards came on quick kicks, though, a maneuver that Hickey may not employ because Davis has not been used as a running back. Perry, who has sat out 2 games because of an injured ankle, will start after his second NFL record. Already the greatest ground gainer in the history of the loop, he can become the man to carry the ball the most times by rushing 45 times this season. And once again, your rosters for both teams. And the same thing, right? What you had here. Bobby Lane for the Steelers turned on a brilliant second half show. And the Steelers beat Cleveland. So the season opened up on a Saturday. Right. So let's start crack-a-lacking into the game here. So we're going to go to the San Francisco Examiner. We're going to go to the September 28th, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Examiner. Find out what happened during the game. All right. Let's try this here. Maybe this one. All right. 49er Lightning. Up. Even before I'm going to refresh the page, before it even has a chance to screw me over here. All right, 49er Lightning hits Eagles 24-14. There was hitherto undetected marrow in the 49er defenses and winged mercury in the feet of Abe Woodson and Eddie Dove today. Together, they added to a 24-14 triumph over Buck Shaw and his Philadelphia Eagles in a smashing start to San Francisco's 10th National Football League season. This was rock-ribbed football such as the 49ers hadn't displayed at any time during their staggering 2-4 exhibition season, either qualitatively or quantitatively. It was good old-fashioned blocking and tackling, which built the 49ers an insurmountable 21-0 lead during the first 3 periods and enabled them to get Coach Red Hickey off to a winning start on his first NFL season. There was no doubt in the minds of the 41,697 fans who rocked with the bruising, elbow-smashing defensive battle that 2 explosive and lengthy punt returns were the highlights. One which came not too long into the game was Woodson's 65-yarder, which positioned the 49ers for an easy opening touchdown on the Eagles' 5-yard line. The second, a 62-yard contribution by Fleet Eddie Dove moments before the intermission, set up still another relatively routine scoring shot from the 13. These two gallops representing the biggest part of a new all-time San Francisco punt return record of 144 yards, with a springboard as the 49ers beat their longtime coach for the second straight time in as many attempts. They were the third and fourth longest punt returns in San Francisco history, behind Hugh McElhaney's 94-yard punt return against the Chicago Bears in 1952 and Joe Ariana's 67-yard against Baltimore 3 years ago. Not to be outdone, still, another first-year performer, Tommy the Foot Davis, rooted a 43-yard insurance field goal during a hectic fourth quarter to surpass Gordy Saltow's 8-year-old NFL 49 record established against Cleveland. The record-making, while crucial to the cause and entertaining to the customers, wasn't what provided the strongest impression, however. That was the defense, front and back, applying pressure on the great Norm Van Brocklin and his receiving group in such a manner as to render the Eagles' renowned passing game an almost useless weapon for 3 quarters. 49er frontline defenders like Ed Henke, Carl Rubke, Matt Hazeltine, Leo the Lion Namalini, Jerry Tubbs, and, all right, let's go to the next page here on the San Francisco Examiner. See what they got here. And rookie, got me. Got too excited here. Let's try it again. Whoops. Henry Schmidt, among others, didn't get close to the Flying Dutchman once during the afternoon. But they so harassed him, he was constantly getting the ball slapped back in his face. When Van Brocklin did get the passes away, Dove, Jerry Martins, Dave Baker, and Abe Woodson were all over the potential targets, making save after save. How effectively this 49er combination worked is reflected in the statistical tables, which show Van Brocklin completing only 6 of 19 attempts for an unbelievably low 44 yards, 14 of them on a pass interference during the first 45 minutes of action. And 2, Tommy McDonald, who had caught 30 of Van Brocklin's passes in the preseason for 663 yards and 10 touchdowns, latching on to only 1 for 16 yards. Not until the fourth period when Van Brocklin threw a pair of short touchdown passes spanning 6 and 19 yards to Bobby Walston and Dick Bielski, respectively, were the Eagles from the Eastern Conference able to muster any kind of concerted trick. Then it was against a relaxed 49er defense. It was too late to do any real harm because the 49ers were coasting on a 21-0 lead as a result of a touchdown by J.D. Smith, Joe Perry, and R.C. Owens. The faithful, however, were given a few uneasy moments when the 49ers went to fumbling, which permitted Philadelphia to crowd the 49er 1-yard line just as the final gun was being fired. Meantime, the offense, while not as sparkling as on other occasions, did a job, too, with a surprising alignment, including the 2 fullbacks, Smith and Perry, in the same combo for the first time. The scouting report said the 49ers couldn't move unless the heavy reliance was on Captain Whitey Tittle's passing. But Hickey crossed up everybody by using Whitey Tittle's arm as a changeup while battering the Eagles inside and out with J.D. and Joe alternating at carrying the ball and confusing the Eagles by switching at left half and full back, I guess. With McElhaney operating as the flanker and inserting an occasional wide sweep, just to keep things honest, Smith and Perry shared the workload and with almost identical results, each carrying 17 times, and Joe made 1 more yard than his running mate, 76 to 75 yards. And that penalty on Tom Brookshire's interception, which might have given us an equalizing score, also hurt. The referee told me it was roughing the passer. He didn't say which passer, but it was a double lateral. If it was for roughing Tittle, then I claim that Tittle was running laterally and should be considered as a ball carry and eligible to be tackled. Referee M.L. Heinz told this writer that he called the penalty because an Eagle player he couldn't identify hit Tittle from the rear after he had thrown the ball. Shaw was joined by Van Brocklin in paying tribute to the secondary and tertiary. We just couldn't cope with the speed of that Woodson and Dove and get our receivers behind them, except on 2 occasions. Jerry Mertens also was in our hair. Yes, I'll have to agree that the 49 defense is the best I have seen. Van Brocklin claimed that the rushing of the 49ers forward wall gave him little trouble, but he complained bitterly about the ability of Dove and Woodson to get down the field to cover receivers far down the turf. I had to get back to short ones and crossovers to make completions and gain yardage, the old Dutchman said. It is too early in the season, both coaches maintained, to make predictions about final outcomes, but Hickey still was firm about the 49er victory over the Rams next Sunday. Tittle went to the air only 18 times as Van Brocklin 40 times, while Wyatt Tittle fell 10 completions short of the Dutchman's 21. There wasn't too noticeably a difference in the effectiveness of the respective air attacks. In fact, the 49ers spiced their activity upstairs with some heretofore hidden razzle-dazzle, which, while producing nothing but trouble, was an entertaining highlight. One of these occurred when Tittle and McElhinney played cross-field catch with a pair of laterals before Wyatt Tittle threw long at Hugh, who had circled downfield. Tom Brookshire intercepted and raced back 40 to the San Francisco 20. Good fortune trailed the 49ers on that one because the officials caught an eagle roughing Tittle on his final throw. The 49ers got to keep the ball. Ooh. The usually complacent Shaw rushed off the bench to argue that one, but settled back quickly after getting the explanation from referee Emil Heinz. Buck wasn't so easily pacified a short time later when Bob St. Clair double elbow smashed Eagle linebacker Tom Catlin after the play appeared ended. He got away with it, too. The whole Philadelphia squad wanted to take on the big 49er tackle and the striped shirters right then and there, but got their salve a moment later when another misuse of hands by St. Clair nullified a 16-yard Tittle to Clyde Connor gain that would have set the 49ers up in business on the Philly 8. The rough stuff popped up several times thereafter, but it never got to the point where things were out of control. Woodson's run came with startling subtleness. The ex-Illinois Flyer captured Van Brocklin's spiraling 49-yard punt on his own 30, and with Carl Rupke delivering the gate-opening block, bounced off 2 Eagles and fled past the 49er bench. He was jostled twice more by defenders, got another big block from Henke, and they didn't knock Abe down until Walt Kowalczyk, the former Michigan State All-American, piled him up at the Philadelphia 5 on the other side of the field. It was tough going from there until Smith powered over from the 1 on his 4th straight carry. The second San Francisco touchdown was 70 yards and 8 plays in the making. The feature of the march was Tittle's 35-yard toss to Billy Wilson, while Billy went sky-high to out-wrestle Eagle Art Powell, the former San Jose starter, for the ball on the Philly 22. 4 plays later, Perry sliced over left guard from the 5 and bolted over. Dove's long run starting from the 49er 25 also followed a path along the 49er side of the field. And again, there was great assistance, notably from Rupke, a tremendous corner linebacker today. Jerry DeLuca, just acquired by the Eagles, overtook the fleeing Coloradoan on Philadelphia's 3rd team. 3 maneuvers later, Tittle, faking as if to throw to Wilson down the middle, floated a 10-yard scoring pass to Owens. Even though RC was clear, he had to make it a diving, tumbling catch when Wise' pass went somewhat off target. Starting late in the 3rd quarter, the Eagles finally managed to put things together, and even though Ken McAfee dropped a sure TD pass when he was all alone, went 48 yards to break the freeze. The 49ers retaliated with a 35-yard sprint by Perry and Davis's 43-yard three-pointer to make it 24-7. The natural ease-up, which followed, was costly but not fatal, and the 49ers joined the champ Baltimore Colts and Green Bay at the top of the Western Division heap. That exalted position faces stiff testing next week when the Rams, beaten by the Giants in their league opener, come to Kezar Stadium. That 48-14 pasting the 49ers took from the Rams in the exhibition at L.A. should serve as a stern warning that there's trouble ahead. In the meantime, it's great to be a winner. Now here's a lot of the once again, there's the lineups, and you can see right here, right? I mean, whew. Van Brocklin was 21 of 41, 174 yards. Tittle was 10 out of 18. Right? There's a lot of pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pass receivers. Wow. You know, once again, see, their starting quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback, was their punter. It means he's supposed to run down two, try to make a tackle if he can. You know, if it need be. And here's the Russian. You know, 49ers had a good run attack. McElhaney 6 for 30, 17 for 75, 17. So 49ers ran the ball very well. What do we got? Total yards here. And the Eagles had the advantage in the passing game, but the 49ers had the advantage in the running game. 18 first downs to 15. All right, so let's go now to the Philadelphia Inquirer, the September 28th, 1959 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer. What do they got to say here? Right. 49ers win. Half late rally by Eagles. Halt. Late rally. I'm sorry, by the Eagles. 24-14. Up. Hold on. Let me do this before I want to screwing up here all. There we go. A frenzied fourth period comeback simply wasn't in time to make this much of a homecoming for Buck Shaw. Given a 2-minute ovation by 41,697 fans prior to the game. 2 minute. Wow. The silver-thatched Philadelphia coach didn't have much else to warm his heart Sunday afternoon as the 49ers whipped the Eagles 24-14 in the opening game for both clubs. Completely dominating the game, the 49ers put 21 points on the scoreboard before the Eagles were able to tally in the fourth quarter. Then it was the Eagles' turn to romp, piling up 2 TDs and falling a yard and a few seconds short of a third one. 2 long punt returns, one by rookie Eddie Dove, the other by Abe Woodson, set up 2 of the 49ers scores, and Wyatt Tittle's passing the other. The clinching points, they would have prevented an Eagle win even with another tally, were provided by rookie Tom Davis of LSU. He kicked a fourth period 43-yard field goal after having twice missed from short distances. But it was a disappointing day for Shaw. It was a downright frustrating one for Van Brocklin. During the dismal first half, the Dutchman connected on only 3 passes for 7 yards. Wow. He missed Bobby Walston by 3 yards when he was open. Wow, that's horrible. 2 of his passes were knocked down by charging linemen. Then, just to show that kind of a day it was, Ken McAfee dropped a Van Brocklin throw on the 49er 12 when there wasn't any player within 20 yards of him. Wow. But Van kept pitching and wound up with 21 out of 40 for 174 yards through to both touchdowns and had the Eagles down on the 49er 1 when it ended. Van was suffering. He'd lost his right shoe in the closing minutes, and hobbling around in that grass-stained sock, he was shooting for one more, even though it was meaningless. It was a good job of pickup by the Eagles through the final 15 minutes. McAfee's bobble came on the final play of the third quarter, and with the score at 21-0, it looked as if it was a sorry flock of birds. Having failed earlier on a fourth down gamble. The Eagles made it this time when Clarence Peaks ripped the middle for 13 yards down to the 49-32. Then Van showed his first streak of consistency in the game, hitting 4 in a row and catching Walston in the end zone for the touchdown. Following Davis's field goal, Van drove the Eagles 80 yards, with Bielski catching the touchdown pass of 19 yards. Tom Catlin's recovery of Joe Perry's fumble on the 49-45 set up the frantic final 3 minutes. The Eagles were down to 4th and 8 at one point, but Van Brocklin nailed Tommy McDonald for 16 on the 49-17, the only catch by the Eagles speedster all day. A throw to Walt Kowalczyk cost 11 yards, but another to Joe Pagliai made that back. Another fourth down spot was saved by a defensive holding penalty. But, now let's go to the next page here. By a holding penalty. There we are. But Van's last try. My bad. There we go. Last try was slightly deflected by Theron Sapp, latched on at the 1, and that was that. Oh, Van's last try was slightly deflected, but Theron Sapp latched onto it at the 1, and that was that. 49ers got in position the first time they touched the ball. Woodson fielded Van Brocklin's punt and flashed back 65 yards to the Eagle 5. From there, it was fed to fullback J.D. Smith 4 straight times, and he scored on the last try. Wow. Tiddle-nick Billy Wilson twice on the 49ers' next drive. The big play was a 35-yarder to Wilson, and it carried to the Philadelphia 22. 3 running cracks put it over. Perry scoring. Dove raised 62 yards with one of Van's punts, placing it on the 13 in the third period. 3 plays later, Tittle passed from the 10 to R.C. Owens, who made a diving grab in the end zone. And there you go. We got some stats there. There's the starters. All right. All right. I think that is it for this. All right. All right. All right. So then we got one more here. Share my screen here. I gotta find it. Oops. All right, there we go. Let me try this here. Is that it? Oh, there we go. This should be it. Right. Let's hope. There it is. Van Brocklin's timing off as 49ers swamped the Eagles. This is from the Philadelphia Bulletin. With Noah Van Brocklin setting the pace, the Eagles played their worst to hand the 49ers the National Pro Football League opener 24-14 before 41,697 at Kezar Stadium. The Dutchman played the first half as if he hadn't had any sleep. He completed only 2 passes for a total of 7 yards, and his timing and selection of receivers was atrocious. Timing and passing picked up in the second half when the Eagles rallied from a 21-point deficit to score 2 touchdowns and make a respectable ball game. When the contest ended, they were on the 1-yard line. The 49ers are a team that even the Eagles should have beaten. One of their runner-of-the-mill backs, J.C. Owens, ran as if his feet were covered with bunions. Yet even he managed to snag a pass good for 10 yards and a touchdown. In the Buck Shaw system, the quarterback calls the plays. The way Van Brocklin called them yesterday, it was no wonder that the Los Angeles Rams coach Sid Gilman insisted on calling them himself. Many times the middle was entirely neglected as Van Brocklin insisted on throwing vainly to his favorite receiver, Tommy McDonald, who was triple teamed. Wow. Tommy, who caught only 1 pass good for 16 yards, was wobbly in the third period, but recovered to re-enter the game. The Eagles' best receiver was neglected Dick Bielski, who caught 3 passes for 53 yards and 1 touchdown. The rest of Van Brocklin's 21 completions and 40 throws for 174 yards were scattered among many other guys: Kowalczyk, McAfee, Walston, Clarence Peaks, Theron Sapp, Billy Barnes, and Joe Pagliai, or whatever, Pagliai, I'll say. The 49ers, White Tittle, who isn't the greatest, well, he's pretty good, though, completed 10 of 18 for 121 yards and 1 touchdown. His prime receiver was 33-year-old Billy Wilson with 5 catches, good for 76 yards. The 49ers hopped off to a 7-0 lead in the first period with the help of shoddy tackling. Abe Woodson ran a Van Brocklin punt back 65 yards to the 5. So inept were the 49ers that it took them 4 plays to score from fullback J.D. Smith running over from the 1. Bielski missed a field goal from the 37, then came a weirdie. Tom Brookshire intercepted the pass from Tittle to Joe Perry and ran it back to the San Francisco 20, but the 49ers were given the ball back on, get this, a roughing the passer penalty. Late in the second period, the 49ers made a 14-0 with a 70-yard, 8-play scoring march that saw Perry going over from the 5. Twice during this silly business, the Eagles were penalized 5 yards for taking too much time while Van Brocklin flexed his foot to punt. In the third period, 49er fullback Tommy Davis missed field goal tries from the 27 and 41, but the 49ers didn't need his toe when rookie defensive halfback Eddie Dove took a punt on his 30 and ran it all the way back to the Eagle 13. Perry bashed the line for 3, then Tittle rolled out to his right and passed to Owens in the end zone. Here, Van Brocklin managed his first down with a 12-yard pitch to McAfee. He threw a futile long one to McDonald, who was smothered by 3 defenders, and then overshot McAfee, who was clear on the 12. Came to the fourth period, and Peaks bowled 10 yards through left guard to the 49ers 13, then caught a 9-yarder. Barnes speared a 14-yarder, and Van Brocklin fired to Walston in the end zone to make it 21-7. Midway through the period, the Eagles got 7 more points with a 9-play, 80-yard scoring drive that featured fine pass catching by Walston, Kowalczyk, and Bielski. The payoff was a 19-yard pass by Brocklin to Bielski, and in the process, the Dutchman had all day to throw. But the Eagles had it. Davis finally unfurled his toe, split the uprights with a 3-pointer from the 43. Nobody was more surprised than this rookie from Louisiana State. With the clock running out, the Eagles gave signs of making the score more respectable. Perry fumbled, and Tom Catlin recovered on the San Francisco 45. From there, the Eagles rolled to the 11, and then on a futile 4th down, had life breathed into them by a defensive holding penalty. Sapp took a flip to the 1, but just as the Eagles were lining up to score, the gun barked and ending the game. So the Eagles were about like 5 seconds away, maybe from scoring another touchdown, but it would have just made it 24-21. So the 49ers, yes, still would have wound up winning that one. All right, what do we got here? Eagles owner warns of cold winter. The Phillies' long hot summer has ended. The Eagles' long cold winter has begun. Another season of chills rather than thrills seems assured for the long-suffering Philadelphians. Well, no, not necessarily. In the wake of yesterday's ignoble beginning, the Eagles were iced by an unimpressive 49-11, 24-14 in the opener. Continuing with the theme, or starting it, was the Eagles' most frigid offensive show to date, with Norm Van Brocklin about as numb as any of them. The game was lost in the first half when the veteran quarterback completed 3 of 10 passes for 7 yards. His 18 for 31 second half was anticlimactic. The 49ers led at halftime 14-0. The story of how the 49ers contained Van Brocklin and Tommy McDonald was the story of the game. That and what Coach Buck's short-term, pretty poor punt coverage. Long punt returns set up 2 49er touchdowns, a 65-yarder by Abe Woodson, the first time the 49ers handled the ball, and a 62-yarder by rookie Eddie Dove in the third quarter. A choice bit of defensive philosophy by Red Hickey, 49er coach, was the undoing of Van Brocklin and the Eagles. Anytime the Eagles run the ball, said Hickey, they do you a favor. We just tried to stop the Dutchman from hitting McDonald long. Philosophy being singularly ineffective without the fellows to translate it into the action. Hickey had help from a spectacular young secondary. Jerry Mertens, rookie Dave Baker, and Dove and Woodson. I can't say exactly what we told them except to guard against the long passes, said Hickey. But we weren't worried about their running game. With the Dutchman and a running game, they'd be champs. Whatever Hickey told them, the quartet practiced an hour longer daily than other 49ers they did. And they did it with speed. They just turned around and headed for the end zone, mourned Van Brocklin. You need a shotgun to get over it. You have to give them credit, mourned McDonald, who caught 10 TD passes and 20 others in 6 exhibitions and just one 16-yarder yesterday. The one time I got behind them, Mertens barely tipped the ball away from me. I felt I was as free on the other patterns as I was in the exhibitions, but the ball just didn't seem to get to me. Van Brocklin said the first half was the poorest 30 minutes of football he and the Eagles have had since they joined each other last year. I don't know what it was, he said. We just couldn't get rolling. We had too many 4th and 1s. Every series of downs, something seemed to happen, a blocked pass or something. The 49ers red dog Van Brocklin successfully at the start, but Lyman batting away several passes. Until we look at the film, said Shaw, I can't tell what it was, whether Vans was missing his receivers or whether our receivers weren't breaking free. They had 2 men on Tommy most of the time, but no one else was getting loose. Falling behind 21-0 in the third quarter, the Eagles sensed the defensive tactics of San Fran and untracked. Using McDonald as a decoy, Van Brocklin hit Ken McAfee for 15 yards in the clear, and McAfee dropped it. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you do. If so-and-so is 10 yards and he's wide open and you flip it to him, if he doesn't catch it, that's the way the ball bounces sometimes. That was our only mistake back there, grinned Hickey. It was I tried to warn them about. Making a mistake against the Dutchman and it costs you 6, unless the man drops the ball. Van Brocklin connected with 4 straight shorties to 4 different receivers as the fourth quarter began. Walston, who apparently dropped the ball, took a 5-yarder for the score. I'm not saying anything on grounds that might incriminate me, said Walston later. The Eagles pushed 80 yards after rookie Tommy Davis booted a 43-yard field goal for San Fran. Van Brocklin hit Dick Bielski twice with aerials as McDonald cleared the right flat of defenders by going deep over the middle. After recovering a fumble, the Eagles drove again, but were frustrated at the 1-yard line as the game ended. They were too late, hot, and too soon called. Oh, that's okay. They were cold too soon, and they got late. They got hot way too late. So, yeah, it is. Sometimes it is what it is. Sometimes, as you see, right, the statistics really, the Eagles outpassed them, but they didn't have much of a running game. The 49ers, I got to move my legs again. 49ers really outgained them, but they didn't have much of a passing game. The first half, Norm Van Brocklin, couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, right? But he started making up for it in the second half. So, but a lot of special teams, a lot. I see that a lot because nowadays, right? You got a lot of guys that are like, especially, they might be like a backup linebacker or a backup quarterback, something like that, but they're really good on special teams. Well, it wasn't necessarily the case back then. If you were on special, because you were a good offensive or defensive player, it wasn't so much like you were fantastic on special teams. Because special teams is, it's its own different animal, as we see today. In today's world, right, you can be, really, really good at special teams and make a team. Not so much back then. Unless you're a really good kicker, maybe field goal kicker or something like that. But if you were, somebody good on special teams, maybe running down the field and making a tackle or something, but you weren't good on offense or defense, chances are you didn't make the team. way it is nowadays, I said you can be a phenomenal special teams player, and there's always going to be room on the team for you. So, but once again, it was just the first game of the season, although it was all a 12-game season. So it doesn't matter whether it's 17 games, 16. Every game is important. Don't get me wrong. But when you only got 12 games, right? Every game is even a little bit more important. But so the Eagles would start off slow at 0-1, but as I said, they would wind up finishing the season at 7-5. The 49ers would start off on a tear at 6-1, and then would collapse toward the end of the season. They would finish off 7-5 as well. So that's the way it was on this date, September 27th, 1959, as the Philadelphia Eagles went into Kezar Stadium to take on the San Francisco 49ers in pro football, first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.